Nigeria is a country of many contrasts, blessed with vast expanses of arable land and the promise of agricultural abundance. Yet, the country struggles to feed its people. With an economic downturn and rising inflation, the price of food items rose to unprecedented levels in 2024. Across Nigerian households, from jollof rice to stews and garnishing, tomatoes are star ingredients for traditional cuisines. Plum tomatoes used to be a common fare from farms to market and homes, but in the rainy season they become scarce. Tomato become a luxury item reserved for the wealthy. The dearth in tomato production stems from multifaceted factors in the agricultural value chain. This documentary investigates the root of the problem. In Nigeria, tomatoes are predominantly produced in the northern parts of the country. States such as Kano, Jigawa, Plateau, Benue, Kaduna, Gombe, Bauchi, Sokoto, Kebbi, Nasarawa, Zamfara, and Kogi have huge tomato fields. In Kaduna, farmers produce 800,000 tons of tomatoes valued at 7.2 billion naira yearly. But when the temperature gets warmer, between February and March, the production dwindles. Even though tomatoes are warm season vegetables, they grow best in well-drained soil. They do not thrive in the rainy season, especially for fruit production and maturity. Farmers recount tales of huge losses in the production of tomatoes.
Wannan wuri a inda nake yanzu karamin wurin ne. Ga babban wurin ne daga nan bayan ka shine ne nayi shi da yawa, nan kuma karamin wuri ne inda nayi shi wanda ina sa rai a lokacin da yayi lafiya da irin kiret 100 za a rinka yi. Amma da zafi ya mishi yawa to kiret 3 aka taba yi daga nan sai ya baya. Kudin da na zuba ai ba su ake batu ba. Tunda ko kudin yan ban ruwa bai biya ba, kudin masu yin aikin labor na yan ban ruwa wasan ma'aikatan gonan wanda ana ke biya to bai ba biya su ba. A mu matsayin mu na manoma tunda ba ma da ilimin tantance iri bane, mu ba malaman gona bane, a mu manoma ne na gona. So alhamdulillah daidai gwargwado akwai iri daban-daban da muke amfani da su, waɗansu suna mana a zafin amma ba sa yi da iri yadda muke so sakamakon zafin yayi yawa. Shi yasa gonan da za a iya samun kaman kiret 30 a misali to sai zama yana ba da kiret 3 ko 4. Lokacin da ake samun tumatir mai yawa shine da a ce a dasa shi daga watan 11 na bature, ma'ana November kenan, daga nan zuwa December, January, February, bi ma'ana watan 11, watan 12, watan 1, watan 2, to wanda duk in ka dasa tumatir zai samu yadda ya kamata. Amma idan ya ketare wannan lokacin to ka shiga tsautsayin shi, sai in Allah ya saka da rabo. A irin da muke da su a yanzu ba sa iya yi, zafi na musu yawa sai ya zama sun nade sun kuturu, a yi a kashe kuɗin za ga gona ka kashe kuɗi sama da 500 miliyan 1 amma bai fi ka samu 50 ko 40 ba.
Without robust seedlings, the yield is drastically reduced. Farmers are left with meager output, unable to meet their needs or market demand. There are different heat-tolerant varieties of tomatoes, but local farmers are simply not aware of these modern varieties and farming techniques.
Zariya ma daga cikin ɗaya masu noman tumatir kuma idan an yazo muna samun over fiye da zatanka, muna samun kiret sosai yanzu idan an yi da sanyi yazo inda za ga ana samun kiret 50 40 muna samun alferi muna hutawa da shi, amma in da zafi yazo magana ya kare. In zafi yazo bai wuce a dinga samun kiret 4 5 an yi da yawa 10 kuma ana kashe kuɗi da yawa a wurin amma ba zai ba amma lokacin da kaka an ya zo yana kuɗi muna alfahari da shi muna samun alfahari sosai ba wani abu da muna samun alfahari shi kamar tumatir din yanzu kuma shine yanzu ba abin da ke ba mu matsala in zafi ya zo kamar shi kuma zai ba mu kuɗi da kaka sosai mu samu kuɗi har mu yanka mu ije mu huta sosai in zafi ya zo mun dasa duk sai kwashi abin da muke da shi kuma ba dawowa.
These compounds the issue, leading to a circle of poor yield and scarcity. Poor seedlings, quality results, and poor harvest, further diminishing the availability of the produce in the market. The impact extends beyond the field. In households across the country, tomato scarcity hits hard. Fatima Lawal, a mother of 4 and grandmother of 3, has given up on the use of tomatoes for everyday cooking. But she still goes to the market in search of the valuable commodity.
Tomato fa?
Tomato ga nan 700.
700.
Wadancan kuma manya 1500.
To a dai mun sauki zan sai tumatir a bani guda 2. Nawa za a bar mu?
To guda 2 ya kama naira 3000 kenan.
A bar mu 2500.
Sai dai miki adalci a bar miki 2800.
Da 500 saboda kaga zan sai tarugu zan sai shambu. Yawwa saboda haka 2500 zaka bar mu wa'annan gida 2 zaka bani.
This market used to be one of the biggest tomato markets in Zaria. The once bustling market now stands empty. With fewer yields from the farms, prices skyrocket. Traders make less profit and consumers are left to bear the brunt. The ripple effect on the local economy is profound.
Nawa kenan nan? Na? Kai baba, yanzu wannan 1000?
In this market, about 2,000 laborers have lost their jobs due to tomato scarcity. Providers of logistics and transportation in the market are also counting their losses. Truck drivers moving tomatoes from the market to different parts of the country are now left with no produce to transport.
Takaice a kasuwan nan muna iya samun kaman trailer 5-6 a cikin kasuwa a wani lokaci ana cikawa su tashi zuwa Enugu, Onitsha, Owerri, Abba, Fatakwal, Lagos, Ibadan. A sassan Najeriya ba inda ba a famfin din tumatir a kasuwar dan magaji. Amma yanzu ya kai matsayin da idonka ya gane maka ko na mota ɗaya babu. Ina tabbatar maka da idonka ya gane maka kwando ɗaya muka samu. Cikakken kwando ɗaya muka samu a cikin tsananin farashi. To abinda nake ganin ana kiyashi a sakamakon rashin tumatir akalla ba a kasara ba kuɗin shiga na sashi kamar bangaren gwamnati ta yi asarar don rana akalla ba a kasar ba ta yi asarar 200,000 300 a kasuwar dan magaji kuɗin shiga sai ta yi asarar wannan abin da ya shahi kasuwar dan magaji sakamakon duk mota irin abin da ake shirya tun da kan rabano na local government da ƙungiyoyi da abin da ma'aikata za su ci waɗanda za a reni al'umma saboda inda lokacin da tumatir yake ne nan wurin an ce ka zo nan ka tsaya sai an buɗa maka kafin ka zo ka tsaya nan akwai lokacin da baka isa daga can ka zo nan wurin ba an kira ka baka da damar ka je daga nan zuwa masallacin can sai dai an buɗa maka saboda yawan al'umma amma an waye gari yau gashi kana ganin kaso dan magaji kamar an raba kwallo babu tumatir akalla ba kasara samu sama da mutum 2000 a kaso dan magaji wanda babu sacin komai a hudan tumatir yanzu an rasa su an yi asara sama da mutum 2000.
With a budget of 5,000 naira, Fatima Lawal cannot buy enough tomatoes to make a stew for her family. Back at home, the quality of tomatoes, pepper and onion from her shopping bag is disappointing.
So all I know, 5,000 has gone here. No meat, nothing. Tomato is it's our favorite, I can say, food or daily needs. And sincerely speaking, we find it difficult now for making our daily needs like making soup, stew with tomatoes, we find it difficult now due to the situation we are facing now and the season again. Because during rainy season, normally, we find it difficult to get tomatoes. They are costly. We can't afford it. And the normal time we find tomato cheap here is during the dry season. Yeah, during the dry season of Harmattan season. We do find it a little cheap or cheaper, because by then with your 1,000 you can even get a bucket of paint. You can, with your 1,000 you can get tomato as much as that. But as of now, the cost of tomato presently is high, sincerely speaking. What we do now is we look for the dry tomato. If you want to mix it, you can buy the fresh one. We buy the fresh one, you buy the dry one, then you soak the dry one in hot water for like 30 minutes with the dry pepper, then you mix them together, you blend it. It will give you what you want. I enjoy the fresh ones, but due to the condition we are facing now, things are hard. I cannot explain everything. We have to go with the dry one. But even the dry one, let me tell you something you don't know. With the dry one, it's even, how do I call it, or how do I put it for you? If you are using tomato of, let's say, 500, fresh one, then if you buy 200 tomato of dry one, the quantity will be the same. When you soak it in hot water, it will raise, or it will double its size. You understand? Then when making the stew, it will be increasing. The size will be increasing because it will be thicker than the fresh one.
Through science, research and collaboration, the Institute for Agricultural Research in Zaria is paving the way for a sustainable agricultural future. Today, a training section is underway to teach local farmers about new crop varieties developed by the institution. Professor Lucius Bami, a professor of pest management, helps us make sense of the problems of tomato farming.
When it gets to the heat period, from March, April, it becomes scarce. And especially if there are not varieties that are heat tolerant. And we have very few heat tolerant varieties of tomato in Nigeria. So when you have the first rain, what is generally referred to as acid rain, because throughout the dry season there has been accumulation of carbon dioxide, plenty of it in the atmosphere. So the first rain tends to wash down that carbon dioxide, and as it reacts with water, it forms something called carbonic acid, which ordinarily is referred to as acid rain. And so it has an effect on young tomato crops. So if they are not heat tolerant tomato varieties, they cannot withstand that early rain and the heat that is prevailing in the environment. So you have a temperature that is unusually high that will result in the abortion of tomato flowers. And so there will be very poor yield. That is one of the reasons that is responsible for shortage of tomato around this part of the season. You also have the activities of pests. Now these pests is just like human beings. When somebody is sick or has some low immunity within the system, when there is a little attack by a foreign body or a disease, it tends to crush the person, have a devastating effect on the person. So that is what happens even to tomato and other vegetable crops. So coupled with the high temperature and the first or second or early rains, then if you have a little pressure of insect and other pests that attack the crop, it affects the yield of the crop. And once the yield is affected, it also affects the availability of the fruits, tomato fruits in the market. And that will be responsible for the high price of the crop that you have in the market. Around this time, it's an annual kind of a thing.
Although the institution do not have the mandate for genetic improvement of tomatoes in Nigeria, it is researching initiatives to help the tomato industry in the country.
Talking about genetic improvement, there are certain traits, characteristics in every crop variety that you desire, that the farmer desire, that the community desire. So when you are breeding a crop variety for release, for use, first of all, what you have at the back of your mind is what is the end use of this crop variety? If it is for industrial use, what does that industry require? For farmers, primarily is the yield. In fact, generally in agriculture, you are talking about the yield. You want a high yielding crop variety. And then you need a variety that can withstand certain environmental conditions. For instance, we are just talking about tuta absoluta. So if you are breeding a crop, you want that crop to be able to withstand the pressure of insects and diseases. You want a variety that can tolerate drought. You want a variety that you can grow in a location that has low rainfall. So you put into consideration all these factors. In fact, now we bring in farmers when we are designing a breeding program, because you don't want to develop a variety that will not be acceptable. So this is the first thing that you consider in a breeding program, the end use. So the scientists in a breeding program, now you start with the production of what you call breeder seed. That's the first stage. So the breeder seed is produced by scientists through various stages of research. You do it, sometimes it can take up to 5 years or even 10 years, as the case may be. The breeder seeds are multiplied into what is called foundation seeds. Then the foundation seeds are further multiplied to give rise to certified seed. So the breeder seed is produced by a research institute. They can either produce the foundation seed, or seed companies can come and buy the breeder seed and produce foundation seed. But what goes to the farmer is certified seed. That's what the farmer plants. The breeder seed is more expensive than foundation seed, and foundation seed is more expensive than certified seed. So what the farmer needs is the certified seed, which is supposed to be relatively cheaper. But you know, because of inflation, virtually all the farm inputs have become so expensive. Now, the indigenous companies that have produced within Nigeria, the average is 1,000, 1,005 plus or minus, per kilogram. Even at that, a lot of farmers cannot afford it. So maybe the bottom line might be for subsidy to the seed companies so that they produce enough seed which can now be sold to farmers at cheaper rate.
Heat-tolerant varieties are available, but only farmers who can afford the expensive seedlings are able to produce tomatoes during the heat period, like this NGO partnering with the Research Institute to produce tomatoes among other crops. Professor Aminu Ahmed is a professor of agronomy at Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. He has a different view of what the most pressing issues is for the tomato industry.
Nigeria has the potential to produce enough tomato and even export. But there are issues and challenges which they are not unsurmountable. We can address them. The peak period of production, we have not been able to manage the production. For example, we don't have access roads to bring the tomato to the market. We don't have adequate storage facilities to store. We don't have processing facilities, and so on and so forth. Research is doing its best to produce heat-tolerant varieties, and there are some NGOs also that are into those, like East-West Seed, Nigeria. They have some heat-tolerant varieties also available through them with farmers. So you have to look at it holistically. For example, our farmers are used to the main season production during the main season. So there is need for extension, awareness, and things like that. And also you should look at it this way. Tomato is essentially what? A cash crop. Up to now, traditional production is farmers prepare food crops over cash crops. So they give priority to what? Food security. During the rainy season, when you have the tomato, heat-tolerant tomato varieties, farmers will prepare to grow their major stable food crops. If you are talking of all year round tomato production, I said it's possible, but still the major production season is the irrigated one, the rain paid. So what you should know is, let's have more production during the rain paid season under irrigation. So the irrigated season, dry season under irrigated. Let's have more processing facilities. Let's have more storage facilities to store it. Let's process it, can it. I hope you understand. So the supply in the market will be all year around. It's not always that you must have fresh tomato. It's good all year around, but there are some seasons which you cannot produce. That season you cannot expect to have fresh, but you can have processed or canned one. I hope you get the point now. So let's have more access roads so that in the hinterlands where the tomato are produced, you can easily transport them before they perish.
From farmlands to research institutes, the power of collaboration between academia and agricultural practice is vital. As global temperatures rise, the development and adoption of heat-resistant tomato varieties signals hope for agrarian economies. But only a concerted effort by the private sector and the government can guarantee food security and sustainable agricultural practices.